Welcome to episode 8 of the second season of E Says, P Says, your bi-weekly dose of Black love. My name is Ellyn, the E.
My name is Paul, the P. For those of you tuning in for the very first time, we decided to start this podcast to celebrate a milestone in our relationship. 35 years of wedded bliss, and as of 2025, it is 36 years. Yay us. Each week we'll share a part of our relationship or some funny activity to share our thoughts with you so you can see what has brought us this far and will take us even further. Before we get into today's episode, let's start with a moment of gratitude. I am grateful for life and being able to see another beautiful day. And Ellyn, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful that we are finally recording this episode and that we made it through another Thanksgiving and we're headed to Christmas and New Year's, which I'm looking forward to.
Amen. And before you respond, I would like to send our prayers and thoughts to those affected in Jamaica by Hurricane Melissa.
Yeah, that's still going on.
Though you don't have a specific place to donate, if you feel so moved, please reach out to your local church and Red Cross, United Way, or if you know someone personally touched by the hurricane in Jamaica, please reach out to them.
So in our last episode, we discussed what marriage is and means to us and others. Our next episode was to be where we discussed our previous year and our goals for the coming year when it comes to the podcast and life. Unfortunately, life, and the mister ended up dealing with some unexpected health issues. If you missed the marriage episode, please take a listen. And if you're a newbie, welcome. And please subscribe so you can catch up and listen to all of the episodes. So this week, we discuss where we've been. We've missed you guys. How have you been? Well, we have been on a whirlwind of many, many things. We started this year with such hope. We attended the wedding of a friend's mom, which we were looking forward to because we were there through the love and loss of her first husband. And it is always great to see love blossom again. During the following weekend after the wedding, because of the crazy weather, Paul and I became ill. I thought it was just a cold or allergies. Turns out it was bronchitis for me and fluid retention for the mister, which sent him to the hospital where I almost lost him. Thankfully, with me getting sick, I was not able to go to the hospital when they called and said he was in the ICU. I was also not able to get in touch with him because there was a ransomware attack on the hospital. So they were not working at regular capacity. No phones were working on the floors of patients' individual rooms. There was no computer access for staff as well. So I did not find out till that Monday how serious Paul's condition was. And I am sure, had I seen him, I would have crashed out, as the young people say, and ended up sharing space in the mental health wing because seeing him would have triggered memories of my aunt with tubes and breathing machines surrounding her body before she passed away. Fortunately, thanks to the quick thinking of a wonderful pulmonologist, they were able to drain the fluid and save his life. So the mister is still here and healing, but surely, thankfully, slowly but surely, thankfully, and getting on my nerves. So that means he is definitely getting back to himself. I wish I could say that was all. However, as we seem to be rounding the bend to get back on track, we were excited for the season of mocks, which starts with the celebration of my birthday in March, our anniversary in April, William and Paul's birthdays in May, and Ryan and his wife Cindy's birthdays in June. However, it was interrupted by what we shall be what however it was interrupted by what shall be known as Angry April. There was so much loss, unexpected loss. So instead of celebrating, we found ourselves 1 week in North Carolina burying a cousin, and another week back in Maryland burying a sister. It was a lot. And the sad part is, both of them were basically saints, very giving to their communities and selfless in their lives to others. One was the NYPD detective first class, as well as a first responder, and the other a teacher, counselor, mother of 4, and wife of 20 plus years. They will be greatly missed. I also forgot to mention my cousin, the detective, was married for over 20 years as well, and the son and the father of 1. So after April, we started healing our wounds and regrouping again. As we regrouped, we have been discussing our comeback and working on other projects that will be revealed soon. I'm so happy to be back and not only to share our relationship with you again. If ever there was a test for in sickness and in health, it is the illness of your spouse. The part that makes it most difficult is that the person you love is dealing with something that you can only imagine. And you can just hold their hand and make sure that their outside world runs as smoothly as possible. Well, that is my point of view on the last few months. Pretty heavy. And Mr. Mock, what is your take?
Well, my take on the last few months has been that I'm just grateful that to be alive, and what you realize when you go through something like I went through, that life really is not as difficult as one thinks, or as you might think, or as anyone might think. You have to be grateful for each day that you get, and look at any challenges that you have really as a blessing, uh, and that always know that God is in charge. And a lot of times you will hear people say that, God's in charge, God's in charge. But you really don't realize how in charge, how much in charge God is, or how much God impacts, all right, until you go through something. And so I really, there's a term that I used to always use myself before I became really ill. God is in charge, but I had to be a believer, and God made me a believer because God saw me through the fire of illness. Okay, and so I'm appreciative. I try to live each day with gratitude and gratefulness. One thing too uh, that I realize is that you really don't understand how blessed you are. I'm just talking about. I'm not talking about all these huge financial blessings or things. And I'm talking about just being able to walk, like ordinary people, being able to breathe properly, being able to go in the refrigerator and just get something to eat that you like. These little basic things, a lot of things that we just take for granted. Being able to get in and out of your car, and to be able to see and to get to certain places and see. Because I just had a recent cataract surgery too, and so I dealt with that challenge. But just not to take life for granted, to take things for granted. So that's one thing I learned through my experience, my journey. I call it my illness journey. Is that not to take things for granted, not to take people for granted, because people do not have to be here. Things can change swiftly from one day to the next. And so you have to kind of value and cherish each day. And I think a lot of times we as people, we just take things for granted. And so this is one huge lesson that I've learned, is not to take my friends for granted and life for granted, my family for granted, to enjoy Thanksgiving, to enjoy Christmas, not to complain less, but sometimes people complain. They don't even realize how blessed they are. They complain. They don't understand how blessed they are to have something to eat every day. I know that people say, "What you? What are you talking about?" That's some people don't have nothing to eat. When they go to bed, they don't have a bed. When they go to try to go to sleep, they don't have a bed to sleep in. So I'm just saying, we really a lot of us are really living a life of abundance, and we don't even realize it, because we just become so used to having to live in the way that we live, that a lot of times we forget about the suffering of others. And so I'm a little bit more, more aware of that. So it's taught me a lot. What I've gone through has really taught me a lot, many lessons. You know, grateful for the teachings of the Lord that He put me through this for a reason. That He kept me for a reason. You know, when I say kept me, meaning that He kept me on earth for a reason. He didn't let me come up there with Him. So there must be a reason why He still wants me. Right. So that's what I basically learned. My wife, to everybody out there.
Well, now that he's done preaching,
what did you ask me? You want me to give you my thoughts? What I did?
Well, I'm glad to hear it from your point of view, and I as well. I'm glad that you're still here because I don't think that with all that went on this year, I would not have been ready for for a lesser outcome.
Mm.
So now let us discuss.
What you say lesser outcome?
You're not being here.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. So that yeah. Well,
Let the public know how you feel. I'm just saying.
I mean, anyone listening that has a spouse that they love and care for will understands that losing your spouse is right up there with losing your parents. So, especially when it happens unexpectedly.
Yes.
Unexpectedly. So now let us go to a mock minute. And previously we discussed our 2025 goals. To recap, they were to stay consistent with our content. Paul completes part 2 of his memoirs. We continue to gain followers and grow our community. We both stay happy, healthy, and continue to find time for each other so we can share the joy and love of our relationship. And what were your goals, Paul?
Well, to finish my memoirs, as you stated, and one goal I want just to stay healthy, so that we can be consistent and achieve the goals that we would like to achieve. You know, so as I said, God must want us to see these projects through because He allowed me to stay on this plane of existence. So I'm assuming that's what He wants us to do to impact others through our work, through our podcasts and our writings and things of this nature. So we've got to go ahead and finish or continue.
Yeah, I agree. And well, as we missed them. Well, we missed the mark on those. We stayed happy, healthy is not. I won't say it was taken out of our hands, but
Right.
it just didn't happen the way we expected it to happen. You and Mr. Paul is working on his second memoir, and it's going to be Still Standing.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Son of a. You think I would know these titles? Well, it had a previous title, but we had to change it, so that's why I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, but still stand. Son of South Central, still standing.
There we go.
So
Vignettes Part 2. That part I know.
Vignettes Part 2. So we're kind of still working. It's not that she's making. She didn't forget. We're still basically working. So a working title. Yeah. But when we do our next podcast, we'll have it. We'll probably, because we work these things through, we talk these things through as a team. So it's not just Paul or Ellyn. We work together to on the works that we're doing, whether it be our podcast or any type of writings. And I want to make it expressly clear too. And my wife has input too on the writings that, things that I write. When she has input, she helps me edit and revise these things. So, and as far as the podcast as well, we work together as a team. So when we come back, our next podcast, we'll definitely have a definite for it.
Well, that's so sweet. The talent, as I call him affectionately, has acknowledged everything else. All right, so now we're in the second week of December. Yes. So I guess we're gonna have to find some new goals or continue those goals into 2026.
Right.
So the next thing that we will
And I just wanted to say, nothing wrong with
no, it's just,
you. If you didn't accomplish, that's why they call them goals.
yeah.
You want to accomplish them. It's like it's having a roadmap. You want to have a roadmap, and it's have some direction. So as long as we continue that, and then things can go in and out of your roadmap. You can add things, take away some things, or whatever. So I call it, it's malleable. You can move, and you got to have some flexibility with it. So we're still working on that.
Well, I'll say that malleable is the better word, because instead of every year setting goals or things that you would like to complete,
Right.
having them be malleable will probably help with completing them. So instead of, heading to the gym and changing your eating habits and doing all of those things at once, because by December of 2026, you want to be a size 2. And by January of the 31st of 2026, you're back to watching TV and eating popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at yourself as not completing that goal. Reassess and start again.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it takes more than once to finish something. And depending on what that goal is, losing weight and changing eating habits can be difficult.
Yeah.
As we can both attest to.
But it's a constant fight. Anything that you want to achieve at the stage, that's why I like that word consistent. Having consistency. You try to, that's the goal, be consistent. Because at least if you're being consistent, you're working towards it. And that's why my wife gets on me sometimes about, when we plan certain things, when we plan to do certain work or whatever, it is important to be consistent. But I have my process in the way I do things too. And that can be I know it can be frustrating I understand. And I think that part is consistent. One thing I did think about was that you kind of have to do this type of work that we're trying to do and treat it like a job. And I understand that, kind of get up at the same time, and you may not get a lot done, but if you just have your mind focused on, okay, hey, we said this time is to do that time, you might only get 30 minutes done, but at least you got something done. That's how I used to think about teaching sometimes when I wouldn't be feeling well. And, I would say, I really don't want to, and I really shouldn't be at work. But I would go in, particularly when I was teaching elementary school, working with my kids. That sub is not going to do it the way that I'm going to do it. It's not going to be the same richness. It's not going to get the kids the same substance. And so, and by the time I do all these lesson plans, and everything, yeah, I'm going to do all of this because I'm required to, because the county says I got to do X, Y, and Z. However, I know that teacher is not going to relate the lesson like I would relate. So a lot of times I would find myself coming in, forcing myself in to come to school. Because even with me being ill and being sick, it's going to be I'm going to do a better job than that sub would do, because the sub doesn't know the kids. The sub doesn't know the kids' learning styles or what the kids' triggers or whatever. Or so the same way with what we're doing, because being consistent, working with each other, planning together, even if we just do 30 minutes to an hour, it's something that we're making some type of progress. So I do see my wife's point of view, of course, and she calls me the talent. Affectionately, she calls me the talent. And, I do, when it comes to particularly the writing part, I do have a certain process that I go through. And then, as I said to my wife, that writing piece for me, it can be quite emotional, because what writing makes you do, particularly when you're doing memoirs, which is what I'm attempting to do, is that you have to think about things that have happened. Some things are painful that have occurred, so sometimes it's hard to put that on paper. And then, sometimes I'm writing and I'm crying at the same time. And I'm not ashamed. I'm 60 years old. I'm not ashamed to say that. Yes, I cried. It's okay to do that. But there's some things that have been happening in my past, in my life, particularly as a young person growing up in South Central, that have been painful, so it's hard to write about. But I move forward, we move forward, because I think it's important for people to read about my experiences and to see how I was able, even in spite of the hurdles, I was able to overcome a lot of things and, be, successful. Okay. So thank you, dear, giving me that, let me be on my soapbox.
Oh, you love being on your soapbox.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
Well, audience, listening. So I really do appreciate it.
Well, I mean, sometimes you just gotta get it out.
Yes.
And so with it being the second week in December, as I said, we're going to continue with the goals that we started in 2025 and perhaps add some more. You'll have to stay tuned. And when we get back to you guys, we challenge you to have some goals or things that you would like to achieve in the next year. Have your list ready and check it off or check in with yourself periodically and see if you're making the steps towards accomplishing it. And we will do our best as long as life doesn't life the way it did this year. We'll do our best to be here and check in with you. And so on another note, we wanted to, with my husband, Mr. P being in the teaching arena, I was reading about them banning cell phones in Sweden. And it starts next school year in 2026, which they said in the article is an unprecedented move. I guess because since cell phones became so popular, no one has ever thought to ban them from school. The only way I think in the US you get banned from using your cell phone is if you have done something so heinous that the school will not allow you, just you, the individual person, not the whole school, to use your phone in school ever again. Like, tell your parents, don't, if he or she brings their phone in, they get kicked out of the system bad. And I don't know what that would be here, and I don't even want to try to figure that out. But I mean, because I know kids have shared some things on social media, inappropriate material, and they still have their cell phone. So we could go down a rabbit hole trying to figure out how bad it would have to be to get banned here in the U.S.
I agree. I'll say this. We just had a situation at a high school in Texas where a young man had lost his life, and the kids were there videotaping this altercation between these two young, and unfortunately, the young man lost his life. This is and that's against, of course, it's I'm sure they have a policy against recording these type of things and putting them on. And I want to stress this to everybody. This young man, I'm not even getting into the circumstances about self-defense or whatever. I'm not getting into that. This is not a courtroom. This is a podcast, and we just talk about things that occur in relationships and in society. Why would young people videotape something like that? That egregious. This is a young person that lost their life. And this is why I agree with Sweden. Why do you need to have a cell phone in school? Now, some people argue, well, we need to have the cell phones in case somebody is an active shooter or this and that. Okay. You got a cell phone in the school with an active shooter coming in the building. There are administrators in these buildings. Believe me, they're highly trained. Okay. And there are protocols when you have a shooter that comes in. All right. The students having a cell phone is not going to stop the act of an active shooter.
And it could make it worse for your particular person,
right,
if that is the case, because they're so, A, your child is scared. B, your child needs to get someplace safe, but they have their phone and they want to reach out to a parent.
Right.
And when they're reaching out to that parent, they could be putting themselves in harm's way. Yes.
You on the phone speaking.
Yes.
And that could let the shooter know where you are, where people are.
And
so it's just a situation where even with the not I didn't mean to cut you
Oh,
off.
go ahead.
With the when there's an altercation in schools, these kids they have the phones and some of them are recording. I don't want to generalize, but there are many kids who do use those cell phones and they're recording them, and they're recording these incidents. It's like it's already a situation where somebody is weaponizing the phone. They're using it as a weapon and putting it on then they put it on these sites or whatever, or Facebook or whatever. The situation already escalated because there was a fight, and it's going to be re-escalated where it's never going to end because now you got this on the social media side. This is a problem.
And that when you said that made me so sad because no longer is it your first response to call the police, the fire department, or an ambulance. You're picking up your phone to record.
Right.
And when you're in that moment, you're not trying to make sure that whatever is happening, those people are safe. Now, I'm not saying, and I'm not saying calling EMT, the fire department, or the police is going to make that probable.
Right.
But at least if somebody that can make the people safe is on the way, you're safe, and possibly the young man that lost his life may not have if instead of recording, somebody dialed 911.
Right.
And then when it goes to you with the active shooter, our parents, I mean, we've reached the stage where our children are no longer in the elementary through high school years. However, understand that when certain events happen, a lot of these school systems shut the mobile systems down so the kids can't call out.
Right.
Or if the police are called and are dealing with the situation, they jam the signals so that because they don't know what types of access or whether bombs are involved or things could be ignited. So you won't be able to get in touch with your child depending on the situation. And we as parents must help our children to understand that a cell phone is a tool.
Yeah.
It's not a third parent. And that, we have to start thinking about each other again.
Yeah.
I think these devices come in the middle of us because I too get wrapped up. I was listening to, and depending on what you're listening to at the time and how the story is told, you can flip your mind into that safety position to the person's position and the recording happening. So another situation that happened is this DoorDasher. She went to deliver food. This man was passed out in his house, half naked, like he had passed out on the couch. Instead of her calling 911, because that's not normal for somebody to be, in their own house.
Yeah.
The pants halfway down, passed out on the couch. They had left the door, I guess, cracked so that the person could, I guess, just slip the food in and close the door. And she walks away and says that she's SA'd because this person was half naked.
What's that mean? Tell the audience what's that SA.
Sexually assaulted.
Oh.
So, and that can happen that if that was the person's intention. Unfortunately, this gentleman was passed out. So he couldn't do anything to anyone.
Right.
So it should never, like if you knock and call out and you see a person is not in a normal state.
Naked?
Yeah, half naked. Like he had been out, his pants were pulled down.
What time was it?
It was like 10 o'clock.
At night?
Yeah, 10 o'clock at night or whatever. And instead of her being offended to me, she should have called for help. That man could have been deceased for all we.
They see the outcome of what happened.
Because it's in another state.
Right.
What happened was she contacted DoorDash, and DoorDash's process is to lock down both accounts.
Okay.
The person, the DoorDasher, and the orderer. So they did that. So she was on TikTok and she was upset because they locked down her account and she didn't know why. So it took her some time to find out, and they told her when anything happens, we lock down both accounts. So this man didn't even know this was going on.
Right.
This man didn't find out any of this was going on until.
Okay, we're going to go to our disclaimer. So I just want everybody to realize we are not therapists. We're just hoping to help others through our crazy love story. Shout out to everyone who took a few moments out of their day to listen. We hope that everything or anything you heard was helpful.
And is there someone or some cause in your life that has gone beyond expectations or given more than expected? Well, why don't you show your appreciation by giving your time, talent, or funds to them? And please feel free to share who or whom you appreciate. It feels good to say thanks. Or you can just send a note or leave one on our social media platforms to thank someone you know working hard at whatever it is that they do that is making lasting change in their field or the world. If you know someone who'd love to listen, please ask them and you to check out our website, mockmediagroup.com, where you can subscribe and listen to all things Mock. If you like this content, we love your support in improving the show. Donate at buymeacoffee.com/Mock Media Group. This will help us cover hosting costs, gear upgrades, and give us more time to create great content for you. And make sure you subscribe on any platform you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode.
Thanks for joining us this week on E Says, P Says, your weekly dose of Black love. You can also check us out and keep up with us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Mock Media Group. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred platform so that you don't miss any of our episodes. And feel free to leave any questions or comments on one of our social media platforms. See you next week.
1